Now we're learning a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991, a follow-up to that amazing power speech that he gave that we learned about last week. And the Rebbe is trying to sort of reorient us a little bit to true values. And generally, that's the purpose of Judaism. But specifically, that's the job of the Moshiach. And because the Lubavitcher Rebbe has all the qualifications of Moshiach, which is sort of, it's becoming a much more popular subject, and people are starting to understand how tremendously misunderstood this idea of Mashiach is, and how how the whole idea has just been tremendously twisted and misinterpreted. And we have like billions, 2.5 billion people, whatever, that have totally the wrong idea of what Mashiach is. But that at least they know there's such a thing as Mashiach, which is, and they know that we're waiting for Mashiach. So what exactly is Mashiach? What's going on? So Mashiach, first of all, number one, Mashiach is a person. Mashiach is a person. Mashiach is not just an era, an age, what do you call it, a period. Mashiach is a person, and he will issue in a whole new set of values in the world. Not really new set of values, but he'll re-inspire everyone to live according to the values of the Torah. The values of the Torah. That's what the Jewish people are chosen for. The Mashiach will just, first of all, activate all the Jews to be Jews, according to the Torah and the commandments. And we've talked about this a lot of times. You can look in the Rambam, Maimonides. He's the only one that speaks in, what do you call it, legal, actual terms about what Mashiach is. There's also a lot of different opinions, different ideas, but nevertheless, the Rambam talks fact. Indeed, what's actually going to be, what Mashiach is actually supposed to, what are we supposed to be waiting for? We're waiting for the Mashiach. What exactly are we waiting for? So we're waiting for a person, the Rambam, the Maimonides says, a person that first of all, his main thing is education. He is going to educate all of the Jews what Torah is, what commandments are, how important it is to do what God wants, to do what the rabbis say according to the Torah, genuine rabbis of the Talmud. But the main thing that this is it's not just this everybody's going to be, forced to do these meaningless acts. If people will feel the Creator, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God. The Jews already have this hidden down deep inside of them. They have to bring it out. That's what the Torah and the commandments are for. But eventually the whole world is going to feel this, the oneness of God. That's the thing of Mashiach, that the whole world will feel that they're being created by the God who took the Jews out of Egypt and gave them his Torah. That's the 10 commandments, right? First of the 10 commandments. I am God, took you out of Egypt. Don't worship any other gods. Okay, so last week we saw that this is a very difficult task that the Jewish people have been charged, given. And when the Jewish people don't do it, so God gets angry at them because there's no one else to do it. On the other hand, the Jews can say, listen, I didn't try out for this job. I didn't want the job. And God said, listen, the world depends on you. It doesn't make any difference whether you want the job or you don't want the job. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to be normal. It depends on you. That's it. Right? You've been given the ability to do it. You have to do it. Like they used to have Superman, right? Superman. Some guy comes from the planet Krypton, and he comes to the world. And he's got these superpowers, but he also somehow or other is given this conscience that he helps the good guys and he defeats the bad guys. Why does it have to? Why can't it be that he's like in the middle? Says he has these superpowers. He uses it, once a year. He makes a boxing match or something, earns about $20 million, and that's enough. Doesn't need any more. What about giving to charity? I'm Superman. Get out of my house. I'll break you. I'll pulverize you. Leave me alone. He wants to have a good time. No. Superman is a person that he has a conscience. He's one of the good guys. Right? He fights for truth, justice, in the American way, whatever it was, he fights for. And why? Why does he fight for those things? Why? Who says that's what's good? Maybe you should fight for, divorce and trans operations and war and destruction and jihad and all those things. Why not? Why can't Superman fight for those things? So why fight on the side of Hitler? Why does he have to fight on the side of the good guys? So the answer to that is that there is absolute good and there is absolute bad. People know that there is. And Mashiach, especially since the time of the Torah, but even more, the 7 Noahide commandments were given to all mankind, to Adam. They know it. Mashiach is going to be a person that's just going to reorient everyone to the truth. Okay? Now, the Jews have this very difficult job, and they don't want the job most of the time. And so God gets angry at them, and he destroyed the temple, and he does all these other things. But don't think I'm coming to explain and to justify, to philosophize on Jewish suffering. I'm not. But the fact of the matter is God said, if Jews don't do what he wants, he'll punish them. It's okay. So we just finished talking about the temple got destroyed. The Jews got spread all over the world. We have these prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, expressing very clearly how angry God is with the Jewish people, just because they're trying to act normal. How angry God is with them. But all of these prophets, despite what the anti-Semites say and the church says and everything, all of these prophets, just look and see, they all say in the end, but despite it all, God loves the Jews unconditionally. God will never leave the Jews. He'll never change the Torah. He'll never change the commandments. The Jews eternally own the land of Israel. God, I am your people. I am your God. You are my people, etc. Eternally. And that's the main thing Mashiach is going to do. And that's the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Lubavitcher Rebbe is the one clear voice coming out from this whole whirlpool of confusion in this world, saying God loves the Jews, God unconditionally. Come back to your senses, Jews. God loves the creation. All people are potentially good. Just make the right choices. Life is precious. The more people, the better. Every human being is right. And all the voices of confusion that come around and say, no, it's not so. We have to. Here we are. So here's the Rebbe speaking. All right. There are 3 weeks of what's called retribution, where we read from the prophets. The first 2 are Jeremiah, and then the last week we read from Isaiah. These really shocking prophecies of Isaiah and Jeremiah, explaining how angry God is with the Jews, and exactly what the sins of the Jews are, and how God is going to destroy the temple, and he's going to scatter the Jews around. But it always ends with something good. Always ends with something good. It ends with something good. But the meantime, all the stuff before that end is not so good. It's very shocking. That's these first 3 weeks up to Tisha B'Av. After Tisha B'Av, there's 7 weeks of comfort, and it's all good. All good. And all these are prophecies of Isaiah. Well, Isaiah, he had the most severe of the retribution haftorahs that we read. Okay, let's go. This is from the Tavshin Nun Aleph, Shabbos Nachamu. This is the Shabbos. 1 second, let's just see if I'm signed in. Yes. You do it as known, Shagam Haftorah, that the Haftorah, that the portion that we read from the prophets right after the Torah reading, the Haftorah it's called, that we're maftirin with the comfort of Isaiah after Tisha B'Av until Rosh Hashanah, She'em lefia zman u'lefia ora. They are according to the time and according to the event. Usually the haftorahs of the rest of the year, they have some connection to the Torah portion that we're reading. But these 7 aren't necessarily oriented to the message of the Torah portion, but to the time that we're in. The time we're in. From Tisha B'Av, the worst day of the year, until Rosh Hashanah, a beginning of a new year. So K'davra Shalah, like the words of the Shalah, Shnei Luchot HaBrit, Rabbi Yeshaya Horovitz lived about, 400 years ago. Shema'orim shel kol hashana, that whatever happens the whole year, 350 years, Kulam yeshaychus loto parsha shechalot bahem ki hakol midei Hashem hiskil. Everything is connected to the Torah. So because the main emphasis over here on these 7 weeks of comfort are the idea of comforting the Jews and not so much on the Torah portion, that doesn't mean that they're not connected to the Torah portion, because everything is connected to the Torah portion. Benir and Didan and Arkan, the Shabbos Nachamu. This is the Shabbos, which is the Haftorah is Nachamu Ami. This is the beginning, and this begins the 7 weeks of comfort. Shayach LaParshas ve'eschanan. This is relevant to also the Torah portion that we're reading, which is Etchanan. Nachamu letchanan. This is a comfort letchanan. Okay, what does etchanan mean? Remember, we learned this last week. Moses prayed 515 prayers to come into the land of Israel, and that God did not answer his prayers. On the face of things, a very, very disheartening message. Even if you're as great as Moses, and even if you pray 515 prayers like Moses did, could be you're not going to get answered. Pretty negative message. But the Rebbe explained last week, if you remember, that no such thing. All prayers are answered, especially the prayers of Moses are answered. It's just that they weren't answered then. They're waiting for us. So this week's Torah portion, nevertheless, they weren't answered then. So this is a comfort, nachamu, this is a comfort that Moses' prayers were not answered. So if so, so always we read Etchanan on the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av. Hanakuda Tapir. What's the point? Let's get to the point of what we want to say, and then we'll widen this point. Nachamu Ami, right? That's the Haftorah that Isaiah says. Where is this found? Let me just tell you 1 minute. I'll tell you 1 minute. Where is in Isaiah? You can look it up if you want. This is Isaiah chapter 40. Nachamu Ami Yomer Elokechem. I'll buy it. It's 2 times. Nachamu. Be comforted, be comforted. Be comforted on the first temple, be comforted on the second temple. Here, Nachama, this is the comfort. God is comforting us, consoling us on the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. What's going to comfort us for this terrible destruction of the first temple and the second temple? What's going to? Like I said, I told you before last week that the Rebbe wrote to somebody who was complaining that he'd been in the Holocaust, and the Rebbe said that unfortunately the Jewish people have known a lot of tragedy, and that they've always recovered from the tragedy. And the Rebbe said that it could be, and in many ways it's obvious that the destruction of the first and second temples was worse than the Holocaust. First of all, it could be that a greater percentage of the Jewish people were killed. And not only that, it affected directly all of the Jewish people. The Holocaust affected the Jews that were living in Europe, and there was a lot of Jews that were living in America that they didn't. The Reform movement, they didn't even want to help the Jews that were fleeing. It's a famous thing. I don't want to mention their names. Famous thing. The Holocaust didn't affect the Jews that were in America, right? Especially the non-religious Jews. But the Holocaust affected all the Jews. There was no Jew that could remain, how do you say, untouched by the destruction of the temple. The first and the second temple. What can possibly comfort us, right? If there's nothing can comfort us for the Holocaust, and most of us just saw movies about it, right? Nothing. For sure, nothing is going to comfort us for the first and the second temple. That really, we're still in exile. We're still feeling the effects of it. What's going to comfort us? The third temple. The Geula Shlishis and the third redemption. Bayat Nitzchi, an eternal house. Geula Nitzchis, an eternal redemption. The Indian said this is relevant also to Et Hanan, the prayer of Moses to come to the land of Israel. That if the Jews would have merited to go into the land of Israel and to build a third temple by means of Moses, immediately there would have been an eternal redemption, a Beis Hamikdash Nitzchi. If the Jewish people would have, in this Torah portion, Et Hanan, the Torah portion that we're reading, is stressed mainly that the request to the land of Israel, Moses to go into the land of Israel, was not answered. Like it says in the Torah, that God, how do you say, he hid himself from my requests. He didn't listen to me. Until Vayomer Hashem, God said, Al Tosef Tadaber Alai. In this week's Torah portion, we'll learn this at 3:00. God said, don't continue to speak. God said to Moses, don't continue to speak any more about this. Go go up to the top of the mountain. Right, he went up to Har Navo, whatever. God said, listen, pray 515 prayers, pray 5,015 prayers. You're not going to go over the Jordan River. That's what God said to Moses. But Savit Yeshua, even more, tell Joshua that he's going to take the Jews over. He'll bring the Jews into the land of Israel. And in fact, who did take the Jews into Egypt, into the land of Israel? Joshua. And after this was the destruction, Chorban B'Golos. And after this, there was the first temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed, and now here we are, wandering around like proverbial sheep without a shepherd for 2,000 years. And that's what we read in Kitolid Banim, that we read in Tisha B'Av. Eich mat'im zeh im tochen haftarah a bittul v'shlilas hachorban b'galus. 1 second. This week's Torah portion talks about bad stuff. The Torah portion. Moses wanted to come into the land of Israel. God didn't let him. The Jews went into Israel by means of Joshua, which means that there was going to be a destruction of the temple, and things got worse and worse. And that is connected somehow or other to this week's Torah portion, which says, I'm comforting you, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it. How is this good? This is talking about the future redemption, even though that it's possible. So how does the Haftorah, which is comforting, talking about in the same league, it's not even the same subject, right? The destruction is talking about how the Jews are going to suffer. And the comforting is telling about there's not going to be any more suffering. Even though maybe we can say like this, in Parshat Et Hanan, it's stressed, Hatzorich v'hachrach b'nechemach v'kiflaim. Maybe we can say like this, listen, the Torah portion is talking about the disease, the bad stuff, and how much we're going to need the future redemption. Because of the destruction, that they're coming at the land of Israel wasn't by means of Moses. That's why we need the Haftorah of comforting. As Mistaber Loma Shagama Nechama, so therefore the comforting itself, not that it also has to have a connection with Ve'et Hanan. So Rebbe says, well, maybe we can say Et Hanan is talking about the bad stuff, and the Haftorah is talking about the good stuff. So the Rebbe says, no. We're going to see that there's a deeper connection, much more positive connection than that. Yuvan, first of all, we'll understand what's the Haftorah of Shema Nechamta Nachamu Nachamu Ami. What does it mean that God said, I'm going to comfort you, double comfort. Double comfort. That's what it says in the Haftorah, right? In the portion by Isaiah. Shaykhut shel Haftorah, the connection of the Haftorah to the future redemption is, first of all, double. That is double. Nechama b'kiflaim. It's a doubled comfort. Kiyadush a kefel. This idea of double comfort. Shayech umor ala geula. This shows on the redemption. Geula. Kedeita b'midrash, like it says, chamesh otiot nichpelu v'kulam lashon geula. There are 5 letters in the Hebrew alphabet that are doubled. If they appear at the end of the word, then they're written in a little bit different way. Right? There's a chaf, lamed, mem, not all of them, pei, lamed not. Okay. Chaf. Okay, no, chaf, yes, that's right. End letters, that's right. I'm sorry. Chaf, mem, nun, pei, tzaddik. All these are different if they appear at the end of the word. So they're doubled letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So it says, doubled alphabet, these double letters happen to be that they appear in very central sentences that talk about redemption. Chaf was used to redeem Abraham from this place, Or Kasdim. Or Kasdim, it says that he was thrown into a fiery furnace over there and he came out miraculously alive. God used Lech Lecha, 2 chafs, Lech Lecha. Redemption, going out from bad situation to good. Double language, double letters. Mem, etc. It gives all the examples. Nun, pei, all of these were used, pei, the Jews were used to take the Jews out of Egypt. Like it says, pokad, pokadati. Tzaddik, it says that's going to be in the future. In the future, like it says, tzemach shemo, u mitachtav yitzmach. Tzemach. It's a sentence from Isaiah, right? From Zechariah. From Zechariah 24. So all these, the redemption then is connected to the idea of doubles, these double letters. So this week's Torah, Haftorah, is also double letters. Nachamu, Nachamu. Maybe we can say that the connection between Kefal and Geula, that's connected, Kiflaim the Toshia. Toshia is also the language of Yeshua, salvation, Geula. Right? Yeshua means salvation, Geula. But Biur and Yanam, let's explain this. That's going to be a doubled salvation. The third temple is going to be somehow or other double, and it's going to erase, and not only erase, but also explain all the suffering we've had up to now. Let's see. Kiflayim means a lot. Doubled and redoubled. This means based upon a riboy. Riboy gadol. Right, doubled and redoubled and redoubled. Ajatachlis a riboy until the ultimate unlimited. Unlimited. Times 2. Everything times 2. Continually. It's a famous the thing that they say that a person is given the choice either to have $1 million or to take $1 and to double it like 20 times or something. You make the figuring out. I don't. So you get $1. The next day you have 2. Big deal. Next day you have 4. Next day you have 8. Then you have 16 and 32. And 64. But then it's all of a sudden it starts getting more and more. It gets bigger and bigger. And then if you have like 20 times, it's a fantastic number. You hope it won't be 21. 21 is even more fantastic. And it keeps growing and growing, doubled and redoubled. So it says the idea of taking a number as it is and doubling it means that it has the potential to be increased always by doubles. But applying the principle of doubling. Gam b'shlemus yoter, the tachlis of riboy, and the number 100. Like a person says, we are obligated to bless 100 blessings every day. So we have 1, then you put another 0 to it, that's 10. 10 times 10, right, that's doubled, is 100. Ubazeh, that's already squared, right? Ubahem, but squared is also doubled, right? 2 to squared, you put a little 2 on the top. Ubahem, nichlalim, kol brachos, these are all the blessings and the rays of godliness and all the how do you say, the influence of God that comes from the upper worlds, the number 100. Because we say that God has 10 sphirot, and each one of them is composed of 10, and each one of those 10 is also 10. So 100, that already hints at the potential for completeness. And because we're talking about God's also has this number 10. So if so, that's the ultimate completeness of everything, is the number 10. That's a total whole number. The decimal system was it.
No, she wasn't interested in that.
Kafi, each one is 10, how each one is included from 10. That's the number 100. So therefore, there's included in this all of the tens that there can possibly be, each of them 100. Let me just turn this thing off over here for 1 second. Oh, there we go. So we get to tens until we get to thousands. Then we get to 10,000s, Ravava. Like it says, Ravava, Ravava means many, multitude. The Tachlis of Riboy, Shalo Yisparmi Rov. You can't count them because there's so many. Okay, so we have, there's like two opposites on it, number and above number, infinity. Infinity means a number. It's a number, but it's infinite number, an infinite size, an infinite. So it implies there is a size, there is a measure, but it's infinite. That's all implied in this novel ideal of being doubled, and that's the whole idea of the future redemption. The future redemption, the word is not such a good word, but the whole idea of redemption is that it's a level of truth and good that is infinite. But it's relevant to us being finite. It's just doubled good and redoubled and redoubled. According to this, now we can explain that the kefel of this doubledness to the future redemption. Because the idea of being doubled, kefel, implies unlimited. This is relevant to the true redemption that's going to be in the future. Sha'az yitgaleh ba'olam will be revealed in the world, or Eloki, a light of God, habligable, which is unlimited. Let's just take a simple example. Who would dream that a flower, a rock, is being created by God himself? Right? Science explains that it's created by these non-organic, they become organic, whatever it is, substances, and the whole thing is it's just physical, right? Which makes sense a little bit. That makes sense, 100%. You can do with it. To say that a flower is created by God, what practical importance can this possibly have? That every flower is infinite. Oh yeah, really? Try, on Shabbos, you bring home, instead of bringing home a bouquet of flowers to your wife, bring like a dandelion from outside. Every flower is infinite. It won't work. It won't work. So what practical importance is this, that everything is really infinite, to reveal the infinite in the world? So that's the point. The Rebbe wants to say, we don't know. We don't know. We can't really appreciate what good is. We don't really experience what good is a little bit. We experience our life. It's good. Like it says, that's what it means in language of Kabbalah, Giloi Orin Sof, the revelation of the infinite light of God. Therefore, everything in the world will be complete with true completion, beginning with completion in the Geula Beit HaMikdash. First of all, beginning with the redemption of the Jewish people and the Holy Temple, a Geula Nitzchis, an eternal redemption, will be infinite. Not like the first temple or the second temple that had a limit to it. even though God was revealed there, but it was limited. The third temple will be something infinite. That's why there'll be the raising of the dead. It says that there won't be any more death in the world. Every instant will be so packed with meaning that nobody's going to be worried about what's going to be in the next moment. Everybody will just be looking forward to the next instant in life. Everything will be somehow or other revealing this infinite good. How is it going to be? It's going to be, and that's the future redemption, and that's the idea of the doubling and redoubling, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Hayom Yom. Started a little bit late today, but here we go. The Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he went to Mezrich with his brother, Rebbe Yehuda Leib, in 1764. Rebbe Yehuda Leib, he went without permission from his wife, and therefore he had to come back. The Alter Rebbe, though, he went to Mezrich with permission from his wife, and he stayed there until after Passover. For 2 weeks, he was uncertain whether to remain there or not. The first mimer that he said, that he heard from the Maggid of Mezrich was Nachamu, Nachamu. But just to make it a little bit clear, the Baal Shem Tov, he was the originator of this whole Chassidut, the Hasidic way of enlivening Judaism. And his pupil was a man called the Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Dvar of Mezrich. And the Reb Dvar of Mezrich, he had, they say, 60 pupils, and they were all geniuses and holy people. And the youngest of them, and his favorite, in a way the holiest of them, that he told them to write a Shulchan Aruch, and also the Siddur, was the first Rebbe of Chabad. But when the first Rebbe of Chabad went, he was just a young man. He was like in his 20s. So he didn't know if he should stay or he should not stay. The first mimer that he heard there was Nachamu, Nachamu. It's not clear if this is the first mimer he heard after he arrived or after the first 2 weeks when he decided to remain and become connected to the Maggid, whenever it was. And there's many stories, beautiful stories that are told about that. And one of them is that the Maggid called him into his room and asked him to, the Alter Rebbe, first Rebbe was considering just going home. It was very nice. And so he said, before you go, can you explain to me the sentence in the Zohar? And the Alter Rebbe explained it. He said, no, that's not the explanation. It's deeper. So he explained it deeper. He said, that's very nice, but there's deeper explanation. So he did it twice or 3 times. And the Maggid of Mezrich said, now I want to explain the sentence in a proper way. And explained it, and the room filled up with angels and all sorts of awesome fire and things like that. And he said, I get the point, and he stayed. That's one story they tell about it. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, 3 o'clock, we will learn Chumash of the day.